Hey everybody, this is Christian Buckley with another MVP Buzz Chat, and I'm here with Dean Swann, and we're chatting, and we're MVP buzzing, I think. Hello.
Hey Christian, how's it going?
Pretty good. So why don't you tell the audience, those that don't know you, a little bit about yourself, where you are, what you do, why you're sitting in a dark room alone, that kind of stuff.
Sure, for sure. So my name is Dean Swann. I'm the Director of Product at tyGraph. I'm the product manager for the portfolio of Office 365 reporting analytics that we do. And I'm in a suburb of Minneapolis. And I have to tell you, it's a beautiful day out. It's in the 70s.
Wow.
But I'd rather be talking to you. So,
well, of course. So you sit and you're brooding in a black t-shirt in a dark room by yourself. You're one of those goth kids, aren't you, Dean?
Yeah, I was pre-goth.
Yeah.
As most of us were.
Yeah.
So no, I'd like for it to be lighter in here. I'll have to get some. I don't know. We'll work on that. We'll put that on the list.
Well, I can see adequate storage behind you. So, all of those file drawers and different things.
Yeah. Well, the Swann family motto is anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So
all those boxes are empty. They're just there for show.
There could be a capacity issue. I'm working on it. Actually, that's an improvement.
So kind of what do you, I know that you are, actively talking at shows, you're on the road a lot, doing a lot of online activities, kind of what are your, the topics today? What are you focused on right now?
Yeah. So, at tyGraph, we're always concerned about helping people find the value of their networks, whether that's SharePoint or Yammer or Teams. In that vein, I do a lot of speaking on some of the things that we've created here. But also, I do have a couple things I'm really excited about, I guess, from a tech perspective. Let me just tell you a little bit about those. John White and I had the opportunity to speak at Ignite last year. And the idea was all about how do we take that really good content, that unstructured content that we've created in Microsoft Teams and Yammer, and how do we take that and enhance it? So John did the heavy lifting on this. He and I kind of talked it through, and the idea was, John really worked on the ability of combining Azure Cognitive Services, Flow, SharePoint. We're using sentiment analysis. We're using, the best of, some of that real good machine learning from Azure, and he's built really a couple of really cool pieces of tech. One of those is the FAQ builder that has been co-opted by the Yammer folks, and they've made it an optional feature. In fact, if you'd like, I can flip your audience the link for that.
Yeah, I'll definitely share the link, and I'll post it in the video.
John did a great job at really putting very disparate pieces of tech together and making a really cool feature for Yammer. But the thing that I'm really excited about that, Christian, is it gets us closer to where I think there's a lot of value, and that is in knowledge management of this content that we're creating on a daily basis. And there's a friend of ours who is just an absolute superstar at this, Sue Hanley. She speaks quite a bit on knowledge management and SharePoint and a number of other things. But I really feel like we create this knowledge, this content in a number of repositories, and it's very sticky. It's hard to move it from where it is to where it needs to go in order to have people, leverage the business value. So I'm really super excited about what John did there, and even more so that what Yammer was able to pick up and build with it.
Well, that's been a long time, problem with, search in general is, I mean, there's so many different factors to what makes, internal search of knowledge of, information management difficult is, documents, assets, information goes in and can be very difficult. It's useless if you can't get it back out at the right time. So it has to be timely. It has to be relevant. It has to be contextual. You want to know what's related to it, conversations, videos of the people that are, that are involved with those. And so it truly is a web, a graph, if you will, of a social graph of connections between, every document that we go and create. And so anything that you can do to improve, surfacing that content and getting to it and intelligently. So I don't even have to, you and I have talked about this before. It's like if I have to go search for something, if I get the search terms wrong, if I get the search terms correct, but the content wasn't classified and tagged properly, if all of that was done correctly, but I have the wrong permissions, there's all these different things which can make an unsuccessful, search experience. But if I have more data, more information, the system can get smarter to know that, hey, there's relevant things and make other suggestions and take intelligent, actions off of that.
Yeah,
we're moving to that world.
Yeah, you make a great point, and that's any KM practitioner will tell you there's really three. When you're looking for experts, there's three vectors. There's what you say about yourself, what you self-identify as your expertise. There's what other people say about your expertise, and now we're getting a lot closer to what the system says about your expertise. So those three vectors, I think we're getting closer to that. In that vein, one of the things at the recent SharePoint conference in Las Vegas was I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done, and had a great time networking and talking to folks and learning and listening. But one of the things I was really excited about was Yammer's best answer feature. And that is, again, more KM-y. We're getting KM-ish around that content. That's the best answer, of course, is the ability for, the person asking the question or a group admin can mark the best answer. And, again, all kinds of good stuff comes from that. But, I'm really looking forward to seeing that feature as well.
Well, and I think that's important too, because I made this point. I've talked for years around Yammer and now around Teams, but about instant messaging in general is, going back in the my startup back in the late 90s. We tried to integrate with different instant messaging tools that were public, that were out there.
Yes.
Had problems. So we built our own and built some basic intelligence into that within our application. But the fundamental technology has not changed. But my point is that those conversations, that is an information asset. That's part of your knowledge management. That adds context in relation to everything else. That's why platforms like Teams and Slack and others like that are becoming so dominant, because people are understanding that it's not just the sharing of a file and then we have a conversation. And unless you capture on video the two of us having a conversation where you're explaining to me the value of this document that you put together, you miss all of that, all the tacit knowledge that comes with the conversation, where you capture a lot of that with the text,
right?
Chat in context to that asset, and then they're accessible together, separately and together. They're available, searchable, within your knowledge management platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been part of the Yammer magic for years, is that, when people would, take a proactive step and make Yammer a full-fledged project team member, as I like to say, and, really use that from a PM standpoint, it makes it really easy to onboard a new member to the project. Hey, just go read the group, or catch up, and absolutely. I mean, that's, just if I can shameless plug for tyGraph again, one of the things we help people do is, surface those threads in Yammer and Teams that have had, lots of collaboration, lots of contributors, likes, and we find time and again that, those have anecdotal or real business value. But you're spot on. I really think that, those conversations, one of the, breakthroughs we're going to have to continue to work on are, find me the best answer bots, and again, I know there's all kinds of bots popping up here and there, but being able to separate the wheat from the chaff and to present that back in a way that makes sense. And I see you're wearing your Microsoft Build T-shirt. Awesome. One of the things, when I talk to especially the VP of development on our team or anybody that's a coder these days, a lot of their skill, not a lot, part of their skill is, their Google foo or their Bing foo, is the ability to go find answers. Well, I think turn that on its head. Wouldn't it be great if you had, the ability, like you were saying, that contextual stream, that you could turn on and off as you were working a problem, to kind of float and nearby and, perhaps help you with what you're working on.
Well, it's funny. I mean, at the keynote for the SharePoint conference, and Teeper talked about, the pillars of the, intelligent workplace. So we've heard that phrase, digital transformation being the broad topic, but then specifically around this idea of the intelligent workplace. It's not just about, you want it to be able to bring everybody together. You want it to be able to, everybody can be productive within that. It captures all the knowledge, all the information within the system, but it's really the AI, the automation, the capabilities that you build on top of that is where that intelligent workplace comes from. So it's, it's almost like the, in the future where it makes me think of that, the Star Trek movie where he goes to use the computer and he picks up the mouse. Computer, hello, computer,
Right, yeah.
If I have to enter search terms, it's almost like the system is failed somewhat. If it's not already looking at what I'm doing, knowing that what I'm reading, what I'm working on, and providing me value, like content, and said, hey, this may also be relevant. I know we're not there yet, and I just want to be able to ask Cortana whatever the smart device, my watch, what my phone that I'm working with, and based on the, almost sounds kind of creepy. We're all with all the backlash against the facial recognition and the online tracking of our movement, so that it's surfacing up things that are relevant. In a corporate environment, I want that. I want it to know, this is me, turn the stuff on, what was I looking at, automatically move over all of my links, all of my bookmarks, open up the last thing I was working on, or for me to say, just open Teams, to this channel and go there. But it also, to the point of what you're working on with tyGraph, for it to look at and say that, okay, Christian, you're working this area. There was this conversation in this other public group happening on Yammer that had a lot, high concentration of movement and activity on that topic. Are you aware of this? You're not a part of that? This is something that you should go take a look at. That's high value.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree. I just hope we don't veer off into creating desktop 3D AI recreations of Clippy. Like Princess Leia. Help me.
That's why I needed my Clippy T-shirt today. I mean, if I had known that you were going to bring that up, I would have just been suddenly put on that T-shirt.
Look, I was a Clippy fan. The second time around, in a retro kind of way. The first time around, I just wanted to strangle him anytime I could. But.
Right, retro Clippy. He's older. He's a bit wrinkled, but he's
helpful.
He recognizes his own flaws now.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's like, how do we how do we leverage the AI to understand contextually what we're working on and, you know, discreetly, carefully, as best it can, suggest, you know, links, answers, sources, something.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things. We've talked about a bunch of the features and some of the capabilities that are going on there. I mean, you're talking with clients about how they're trying to solve some of these problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where are you when you go in with an engagement? I know you're a product company, not the services side, but in your conversations with customers about where they are, kind of what are the patterns that you see? What are the conversations that you're having with clients to move them from the old way of thinking to this more automated realm? Kind of what does that journey look like for clients?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question.
It's a big question, I realize, but
yeah, no, what I would say is we have just like, you know, anyone with a product, we have customers in various spots in their maturity journey with, let's just broadly saying, digital transformation. Mm-hmm. I was talking to a customer today who they're moving from one Microsoft product to another, but they don't want to shut off the one until they get a particular level of engagement in the new workload. And so they're using tyGraph to kind of help them gauge that movement, which I hadn't thought of. One of the other things that was really exciting to me, we had this, and you and I have talked about this a lot, what makes you an influencer on a social network, whether that's, you know, a public one or a corporate. There was one of our customers who was having a campaign around mental health awareness. And they wanted to create situations in Yammer where people could have conversations. And they used our influencer list to find people that would help start those conversations in various Yammer groups. So, you know, that's kind of identifying champions or people comfortable with communicating in that forum, and then using it for something else, which I found really satisfying. As far as bots, we do have a couple of customers that are interested in knowing when certain events happen, and based on that event happening in Yammer or Teams, alert another team in that organization to take an action. So that's, you know, we're kind of getting that down that road, but, you know, we're all still trying to figure our way in making the most of the modern workplace.
Yeah, and I know that's I mean, the conversation I just came out of the webinar I just did today, talking about, you know, keeping up with the volume of information of change, whether it's, I mean, just Microsoft alone, much less all of the vendors, all the partner solutions, all of the other technology, the tools that we have out there. It's interesting. There's just it's in my to read pile, but there was just some data that was provided. So I can't tell you by whom, so I got to go read the articles. But essentially something that it's not shocking, I'm sure, but is that the increase in technology is actually having the opposite effect on productivity. When you have too many solutions, too much focus on technology, people actually lose focus, and they lose productivity. Like we've done that for years, but but specifically this data, this report was around productivity solutions.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And I totally agree. And I wanted to mention two things along those lines. First of all, I had the opportunity to speak at Ignite last year with Darryl Webster and Simon Denton on the evolution of the IT Pro. And it's really kind of getting into this, one of the things that I'm really passionate about, which is change management and understanding how that impacts the organization and how IT needs to really embody, you know, whether it's ProSci or, you know, some other governing body with, you know, that has a lot to say about change. But it really is, look, we've got a lot of opportunity here to use these productivity tools. Let's focus on what problem that we're trying to solve. I love those business scenarios. Another plug, for example, the whole Microsoft Services Adoption Specialist course. That's a really good one. But really focus on what problem are you trying to solve, and using the right tool for that. And I know it sounds like advanced common sense, and it is. But then leave the rest of it alone is kind of where I'm coming from, for now. But really focus on those key business problems, use the tools for those, and then stop and re-engage when you have another problem to solve.
Well, because I completely agree with that. I mean, that goes kind of the fundamentals of you doing a new deployment. Doesn't matter what the technology is. A new deployment of that, a system, a process, tools, is to go and pilot that. You start small, learn from that, and then slowly, organically grow that out. That's the most successful way to deploy technology. Period. Especially platforms like Office 365 or Teams, SharePoint, Yammer, anything like that. But then the more data that you have around what not just relying on people coming back. No, I think it's great. I think it works well.
Yeah.
Then you slowly design a new Edsel.
Yeah.
Based on that pumped up, excitement, real or perceived. But to actually look at that data and be informed about how are people actually using this? Why is that organization? I'm doing 3 pilots now, and I'm getting similar feedback or data points back. However, actual usage engagement is higher on this. What are they doing differently about this? Is it the people? Is it the manager? Is it the fact that they have someone that's evangelizing it within that team, that pilot group, that's different than the other 2, learning from that? Is it because they went in more structured, created a template for this? They're more, step by step, here's how we're moving forward. With the others, we're just kind of, hey, we'll just try it and see what we think,
Yeah.
But having data behind that, and I know that's part of what you guys are doing, saying with your tools, not to do another plug for tyGraph, but
I definitely appreciate that. But and the other thing I want to just back up. I don't want to sound like I'm blasting our the hand that feeds us.
You mean the tygraph.com at tygraph.com is how you find that.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. No, I'm speaking more about your point around productivity solutions, maybe causing some issues. And again, I would say, I want to say 2 things about that. One is I want to go back and read that because, some of that sounds a little clickbaitish.
Yeah, which is why I need to go read that. I'll share it with you.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the blog post. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that we, don't just do some, manage by headline here. So you definitely need to do our homework. And then secondly, I would look at, some of the recent, total economic impact studies coming out of like Microsoft Teams, or about Microsoft Teams, excuse me. I think it was one of the major research companies. I'm sure you can.
Like Forrester, IDC, or something.
I think it was Forrester.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But they had a lot of good things to say about, how people are using it to be more productive. I think where we really get into trouble is when the folks responsible for the change do a poor job of, laying out exactly why we're doing this and bringing everybody along for the journey, right, and what it's for and what it isn't for. And it's up to us. It's up to the folks that are, helping bring that change about to be very clear on the whys and the whats and the hows and all that.
You're going to. I've used the example many times that if you have the technology, there's the processes that you're doing, the business activities, and then there's the people. When you put the technology at the front of the priority, then the process is impacted and the people, suffer because of that. If you put people first and process behind that. I mean, they know what they're trying to accomplish. And I mean, I've used this example that I've seen examples of teams that are highly productive, very connected. They know the roles, they know what they're trying to, the business outcomes, they have their process down, and they have outdated, old, aging, ancient technology, and they're successful. Right. And the opposite is not true. You can have the latest, greatest technology, maybe has connections to that, but the people are disconnected from that. You will fail every time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's really what I'm getting at is, I saw something recently that really stuck with me, and that is nothing changes if the people don't change. And, what we're really about here, especially in modern workplace, is a fundamental change in the way people are working. And if you don't pay attention to that part of it, then it's not going to stick. It's not going to be as effective as it possibly can. So my big soapbox.
It's a harder topic. That's the people side of that. It's a harder topic. I mean, it is. It's easy to go and say, let's turn to the spreadsheet. What does the spreadsheet tell us? Well, let's add a new calculation. It's not telling us what we need. You can't manage that way.
That's right. Yeah, and so my soapbox lately has really been about. There's two pieces. There's the technical implementation, which is obviously very critical, but also there's helping people change. And my antidote to the people that write those articles about productivity solutions being adding to the stack of issues, it's okay, well, let's go look at the change management that was put in place or not in place to cause that issue. So,
well, it's
thanks for letting me drag that out a little bit.
Again, not having read what the new study is. I mean, what resonated with me right away is because back in 2001, 2002, I was working with this vendor that we brought in to develop the UX for this platform that we were building. This collaboration team, organizational collaboration, and specifically people inside. It was a very much like an Office 365 like hosted collaboration. So you bring in outside partners into this. And one of the key themes that they just kept hammering on this vendor, because that's all they were doing, you clicked on that button. How did that make you feel? Kind of stuff. It was my first time going through the level of granularity over the UI design. It was a great experience. But they kept drilling that point. They said, if you give people too many options, it actually decreases, the actions taken. I liken it as a marketing guy to say that, if you send out and your call to action is that you want people to register for a webinar, and then you include in that email 10 other links of things to go and do, and people get overwhelmed, they're more likely to click on nothing than to go register for that webinar, which is truly what you want to go and do. Yeah. Too much choice actually reduces the number of actions taken across the board.
Yeah, and more importantly, we're living in a world where we need to make our employee experience as good, if not better, than our customer experience. And to your point, there has been a number of studies in the social sciences around choice and how, exactly what you're saying, too much choice leads to dissatisfaction. And
it was also a great song by the Blow Monkeys, "Too Much Choice." I'll put a link as well in there.
Yeah, I've got a free will. I just haven't used it. I think that was Utopia. Might want to look into that. Todd Rundgren and the guys. But yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. There needs to be a balance of choice, and it's sometimes it's how do you do that effectively without biasing the results. I mean, that's really the kind of the magic here is give enough choice to solve the business problem, but not so much that they don't get the job done.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's I know we could go on and on about that that topic, but I know it's a huge focus for you and the team there around that, is provide information about why people are collaborating, how they're collaborating, where they're collaborating, why, and how does that inform what you go and do. I mean, that's something that every organization, product company aside, it's what every organization needs to be. If you want to understand, why we're not as effective in one, business unit or another, and start looking at that data. I always like it. It's you don't know, we're not good at measuring and what our lost opportunities were and the impacts of those lost opportunities. You may think that your organization is doing really well. Well, if you're able to go in and see where inefficiencies are improved at, I mean, how do you know what those revenue, the bottom line impacts would have been had you been more efficient in that? Because the reality is, more people, this should be basic, straightforward for people to understand it. The more people you have actively collaborating, within an organization, the more output, the more innovation, the more knowledge that's created, that's intellectual property that's created, the more value is generated for the company. So if people aren't talking, if they're not sharing, then you're not achieving what you could be achieving.
Yeah, and I completely agree. One, I wanted to go back to the whole choice and value and kind of what we do here at tyGraph. Anybody on the team will tell you, one of my favorite data jokes is, we used to have 12 reports, in the standard tyGraph offering, and we've made it better. Now we have 7. It's really true. We had a very dear customer and friend of mine, Melanie Hohertz. She is a great community and digital productivity mind. And she, when we first started working on tyGraph, she would look at a visualization and she would say, "So what, Dean? So what now that I see this visualization? What do I do with this?" And if I can, leave the audience with anything, it's, we all need to take a look at the work that we're producing and say, so what? What now? What value is this to the people consuming it? It helps.
So looking at where we are in this recording, so what now, Dean?
So what now? Well, first of all, I want to say a personal thanks to you, Christian, for caring enough about the MVP community to have these kind of desk side chats with a number of us MVPs. I think it gives us an opportunity to kind of think about and reflect on what we're doing and what we should be doing. I know a couple takeaways I have from this is to go back and look at that productivity study, for example, and maybe look for an old Blow Monkeys cassette tape. It was the Blow Monkeys, right?
Yes, of course. I've got the full catalog. So if you're
I'm sure you do. Why would I? I should have known that.
Yeah.
But so what's next for us is to continue down that path. I will tell you, one of the things we're very serious about is people analytics. And GDPR aside, what can we do with the data? Some people call it data exhaust, but what can we do with the data that's collected in a responsible way, in a very people first way, to determine answers to questions like, what teams are most likely to be innovative? Where do you have a weakness in a supplier employee relationship that you should be aware of? All those kinds of difficult questions. Maybe we can aid some of that with data around people analytics.
I worked for many years in the project and portfolio management space, and so I've thought about this a lot, about the type of data that you're talking about. But I think that's a great point, to be able to go in there to say that if the system, and we're going to get to this place where it starts making people suggestions for new projects based on the team that's assembled, that it actually recognizes that based on the data, that when you and I are together, we're more effective on a project than when I'm working with person B and you're working with person
That's right.
C over there, that, for around this type of problem or this type of client in this sector, that the system will start to pick up where, like, hey, for oil and gas, actually, Dean's our best person for that. The system, you don't have to say that and program that in there. It just looks at the data and knows that as this project comes up, Dean would be the right project manager or the right engineer to assign to that project. That kind of intelligence is coming from this, and it comes from those kind of personal analytics.
Yeah, spot on. I totally agree. And so does Rambo. Rambo thinks that's a great idea.
Well, Dean, so people want to know more about you, get in touch. What's the best way to find you in the digital world?
I'm on LinkedIn, of course, Twitter, at @Dean Swann. My blog, I'm an itinerant blogger. So, theswandive.com. John White named my blog, by the way. I thought it was very clever. Thank you, John. That's how to get a hold of me. Twitter, I DM, always an open channel for me.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Dean, and have a great rest of your day.
Christian, thanks a lot. You take care.